Believe in a return to the gold standard? You are now officially an extremist, according to the FBI.
Yeah, we got them just where we want them. You know, they're trying to keep the gold price cheap because it makes a mockery of the U.S. dollar. So the FBI is saying if you buy gold, you're a terrorist, thus increasing the panic buying of gold around the world. This is just like Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke trying to talk his way into some kind of economic nirvana, which has failed miserably. Now the FBI believes that they're hotsy-totsy economists. They're going to talk gold down. Yeah, right, that's going to happen, you frickin' idiots. You're only going to cause more panic buying. I went out and bought more.
In fact, it's actually worse than what this headline from Zero Hedge suggests. They're saying that if you believe in a return to the gold standard, you're an extremist, according to the FBI. In fact, it's actually if you think that the U.S. government went bankrupt by going off the gold standard, you're an extremist. Now look at the full context, however, of the FBI warning. FBI warns of threat from anti-government extremists. Now, if it weren't for the gold warning, you would think these were bankers. Anti-government extremists opposed to taxes and regulations pose a growing threat to local law enforcement officers in the United States, the FBI warned on Monday. These extremists, sometimes known as sovereign citizens, believe they can live outside any type of government authority, the FBI said. The extremists may refuse to pay taxes, defy government environmental regulations, and believe the United States went bankrupt by going off a gold standard.
Well, I like the way they referred to it in the past. And they say, the FBI is saying that the United States went bankrupt when it got off the gold standard. Yes, when the U.S. got off the gold standard and they filled the economy worth of now 15+ trillion in debt, that's true. They went bankrupt. So the FBI is saying, if in fact you pick up a history book, if you look at a fact on the internet, if you speak with a neighbor about the facts of the reality of the bankruptcy of the United States, oh, we're gonna come after you, and we're gonna cause massive global panic buying of gold because that's how smart we are.
The FBI mentions that these so-called sovereign citizens are committing many crimes, mostly white-collar crimes of fraud, they say.
You're into the gold standard, but do you really think that could happen in 5 years?
Absolutely. It could happen sooner than that. But I think the only reason it would happen is because we have a dollar crisis. We have a currency crisis that brings on an even worse financial crisis. And I think that currency crisis is coming soon. It's going to send the dollar plunging, consumer prices and interest rates surging, and we're going to be in a much deeper recession. And the only way to have a real economy or sound economy is to discipline the government to prevent them from deficit spending. And the only way to do that is with a gold standard.
If you really are concerned about deficit spending, which I am, the only way to stop it is to stop it dead in its tracks. So these are just excuses, you know, that the government is making. And first of all, we have precedents for default. We defaulted in 1971. You know, if you owned a U.S. Treasury bond in 1970, for every $35 you had, the United States government promised to give you 1 ounce of gold. And then we defaulted on that promise. We told our creditors, we are not going to give you any gold for your treasuries. And there was a catastrophic result. It was the 1970s. It was runaway stagflation. The price of oil went up tenfold because we defaulted on that promise.
Well, here's my...
But anyway, I guess I'm going to say a few words about taxes, because I guess this is an anti-tax organization. So, yeah, I'm pretty much against taxes. You know, my father lived here in Las Vegas for many, many years. He now lives in Terre Haute, Indiana, in a federal penitentiary, because he was protesting taxes and the way the government goes about illegally collecting.
So take me back how this happens, because I don't need to tell you that we're desperate for jobs. And if I hear that someone wants to hire people and there's an impediment, I'm a little scandalized. But the reason I asked you that question off the top is I want to know if you're recklessly trying to hire people. And we've seen what happened with the firm out in California that you know, got a little too much extra cash and ran themselves into the ground, our cash. But so tell me how your situation arose.
Yeah, I mean, not at all. I mean, first of all, regulations are crippling businesses all around the country. It's not just mine. And in some cases, they don't just cripple the business, they kill the business. But
well, I've moved my family to a very lightly populated rural region west of the Rockies. We've got national forests surrounding our property, and we're pretty well hunkered down. We have a great, huge woodshed full of firewood. We have a large garden. We hunt, we fish, and most of our neighbors are in a similar mode. So I think that's probably the safest way to live. Of course, not everybody can do that. Even somebody that is living in the suburbs and feels stuck can at least lay in a good year or two supply of food with storage food and get themselves a good quality water filter so they can filter water from the runoff from their roof, from their downspouts.
Yeah, I've advocated that.
Simple things that people can do that will greatly increase their chances of survival. So you may actually be in a worse situation. You may end up in a situation where all your neighbors have is guns and no food. That's a bad situation.
Yep, but what about for the people though who are, you're saying, retired people, elderly people? What about hospitals or things like that? I mean, they need to be close enough to medical attention. I mean, what's that like out in the boonies?
Well, there's if you move to say 30 or 40 miles out of Salt Lake City or 30 or 40 miles out of Spokane, Washington, in the Northwest, there's still fairly major medical centers available, and you're not that far out, and you're not even all that far out from shopping. But what you've done is put yourself in a more lightly populated, food-producing area with plentiful water. That's the crucial thing: is water and food. It's going to come down to that.
Yeah, although are they going to be able to protect that food? If you're elderly, you might not be able to, even if you've got, say, some kind of weapon, I mean, you might be easier to be overpowered. There might not be as much police protection out there in the boondocks if some of the people find out that, hey, there's people up there with food.